Mingoose Mouse lives in a house. Where does Mingoose Mouse live? In a house. One bright spring morning, Mingoose Mouse was sweeping the little path outside her cozy forest house when she heard a soft, jingling sound floating through the trees. It was not birdsong, and it was not the wind in the leaves. It was silver bells, tiny wheels, and something magical coming closer. Mingoose Mouse stopped sweeping and looked down the winding forest path. Around the bend came the most colorful caravan she had ever seen. It was painted in soft pastel pinks, blues, yellows, greens, reds, and purples, with flower patterns on the doors, ribbons on the windows, and little bells chiming as it rolled along. Sitting at the front was a smiling traveling lady with curly hair, golden earrings, a wide flower-covered hat, and a bright patchwork dress that looked as if a rainbow had turned into fabric. Beside her sat a sleek black cat with a huge glossy quiff, a red scarf, dark sunglasses, and the confident face of someone who believed the entire forest had been waiting for him. The caravan stopped outside Mingoose Mouse's house, and the traveling lady climbed down with a warm smile. "Good morning," she said. "I'm Maribella Bright, and this is my traveling color caravan." Mingoose Mouse clapped her paws together. "How wonderful," she said. "And who is your friend?" The black cat stepped forward, puffed out his chest, tilted his head back, and gave the loudest, longest, wobbling meow the forest had ever heard. Meow. Mingoose Mouse blinked. A bluebird fell silent. Two butterflies flew into each other. Somewhere in the distance, a squirrel dropped an acorn. "Goodness," said Mingoose Mouse politely. "He certainly has a voice." Maribella smiled proudly. "This is Elvis Meowsley. He travels with me and sings wherever we go." By then, Puff Chicken had arrived, sparkling in her gold dress and jewels. Semolina Pilchard came gliding in on his magical carpet with a biscuit in one fin, and his fez sitting at a hopeful angle. Mr. Hugh Lindwood appeared with his newspaper tucked under his arm, looking as though unusual noises were exactly the sort of thing he had been trying to avoid. The pink witch came next in a swirl of pink lace and giggles, and beside her came Mental Mog, fluffy, dreamy-eyed, wearing her round glasses and her little name tag. Elvis Meowsley saw the audience gathering and decided it was time for a proper performance. He threw one paw into the air and sang again. "Me, yow, yow, yow." Puff Chicken covered her ears. What in the name of sequins was that? Mr. Hugh Lindwood lowered his newspaper very slowly. "It sounds like a rusty gate being pushed through a trumpet." Semolina Pilchard stared at Elvis and said, "That was loud enough to knock the jam out of a donut." But Mental Mog did not cover her ears. She did not wince. She did not look confused. She clasped both paws together, gazed at Elvis Meowsley with dreamy golden eyes, and sighed. "Oh," she said softly, "that was beautiful." Everyone turned to stare at her. "Beautiful?" said Puff Chicken. "That was not beautiful. That was a noise wearing a scarf." Mental Mog shook her fluffy head. No, you don't understand. He sings like moonlight on a still lake. He sings like stars falling into velvet. He sings like a lonely heart finding its way home." Elvis Meowsley froze dramatically, placed one paw over his heart, and bowed deeply to Mental Mog. At last, someone understood true talent. Mingoose Mouse looked puzzled. "But I only heard a very loud meow." Maribella smiled kindly. "That is because Elvis's music is special. Most creatures only hear the outside sound. Cats can hear the true song underneath." Mental Mog nodded dreamily. It was magnificent. Semolina Pilchard tilted his head and listened carefully as Mental Mog gave a soft little meow of her own. Then his face brightened. "Oh, I know what she means. Mental Mog says Elvis is a misunderstood genius with excellent whisker control." Everyone looked at Semolina in surprise. "You can understand her?" asked Mingoose Mouse. Semolina shrugged. "Apparently, I can't explain it. I just know what she means. It's a gift, like finding biscuits in unexpected places." The Pink Witch clapped her hands. How marvelous! Mental Mog meows, Semolina translates, and Elvis performs. This is already better than most afternoons. Maribella laughed and opened the painted door of her caravan. Inside were shelves full of glowing jars, folded ribbons, polished stones, tiny lanterns, beads, bells, and little bottles of color that shimmered in the sunlight. I travel from forest to forest teaching the magic of color, she said. Colors do not just make the world pretty. They can remind us how we feel, and sometimes they help us feel better. She lifted a glowing blue ribbon. Blue helps us calm down. It reminds the heart to slow down and breathe. Semolina Pilchard looked at the blue ribbon with great interest. Does it work on fish? He asked, especially fish who get excited about snacks, stories, magic, carpets, hats, jokes, mysteries, biscuits, and sudden noises. Mr. Hugh Lindwood folded his newspaper. In your case, Semolina, I'd suggest a lake of blue. Puff Chicken nodded. Possibly an ocean. Semolina took another bite of biscuit and said, I am naturally peaceful. Then he spun round twice, dropped his biscuit, caught it again and shouted, Emergency snack saved! Maribella smiled and held up a yellow ribbon. Yellow brings cheer. It reminds us to notice happy things, like sunshine, laughter, flowers, and warm tea. Mingoose Mouse smiled. I like yellow. It feels like a happy morning. Next, Maribella lifted a red ribbon that glowed bright and bold. Red gives courage. It helps when we feel nervous and need to be brave. Elvis Meowsley puffed out his chest and sang a tiny extra note. Everyone flinched except Mental Mog, who sighed as though she had just heard the most romantic concert in the world. Maribella then lifted a green ribbon. Green brings balance. It helps us feel steady, like trees with deep roots. Puff Chicken touched the green ribbon carefully. Balance is important, she said, especially when wearing heels in a forest. Then came a soft pink ribbon. Pink reminds us to be kind and gentle with each other. Mingoose Mouse nodded. That one feels like a hug. Last of all, Maribella lifted a purple ribbon that sparkled like twilight. Purple helps us dream, imagine, and believe in a little magic. Mental Mog's eyes grew wider. Purple understands me, she whispered. Elvis Meowsley purred proudly beside her. As the ribbons glowed, the whole forest clearing seemed to brighten. The flowers looked happier. The leaves shimmered. The caravan bells chimed softly. And even Mr. Hugh Lindwood looked interested, though he tried very hard not to show it. He said. I suppose color may have some educational value. Puff Chicken smiled. That means he likes it. I said no such thing, said Mr. Hugh Lindwood, but he did not open his newspaper again. She said, I think it would be the perfect place for a campfire tomorrow evening. I could tell you stories about colors, moods, and the magic hidden inside ordinary things. Mingoose Mouse clasped her paws together. A campfire would be wonderful. I'll invite everyone. And biscuits, said Semolina Pilchard. A campfire needs biscuits. And elegance, said Puff Chicken. And tea, said Mr. Hugh Lindwood. And pink sparkle, said the Pink Witch. And Elvis, whispered Mental Mog dreamily. Elvis Meowsley stepped forward for one final dramatic encore. He shut his eyes, lifted his chin, and sang with all his heart. To everyone except Mental Mog, it sounded like a teapot arguing with a garden fence. But to Mental Mog, it was glorious. Her eyes sparkled. Her paws pressed to her chest, and little pink hearts seemed to float around her head. Semolina listened carefully, then announced, Mental Mog says Elvis has ended the performance with emotional depth, strong whisker work, and excellent tail control. Puff Chicken adjusted her handbag. Rubbish, she said. Then she paused and looked at Elvis. But confident rubbish. Elvis bowed anyway because he understood applause in all its forms. Maribella closed her color chest and tied a blue ribbon gently around the handle. Tomorrow, she said, we shall gather by the fire and learn how colors can help when feelings get muddled. Mingoose Mouse looked at the pastel caravan, at Maribella's glowing ribbons, at Elvis Meowsley standing proudly beside Mental Mog, and at all her friends gathered in the sunny forest clearing. She had a feeling this was not just an ordinary visit. This was the beginning of a very colorful adventure. And as the bells on the caravan chimed softly in the breeze, Semolina Pilchard picked up the blue ribbon, looked at it carefully, and said, "I'll just borrow this for research." Mr. Hugh Lindwood raised one eyebrow. "Research?" Semolina nodded. "Yes, I am researching calmness." Then he ate another biscuit and sat still for almost 3 whole seconds, which everyone agreed was a promising start. Semolina Pilchard sat very still on the forest ground, holding his biscuit carefully in both fins. Everyone stared at him in hopeful silence. 1 second passed, then 2, then 3. "Well," said Mr. Hugh Lindwood, raising one eyebrow, "that may be a new record." Semolina smiled proudly and took a tiny calm bite. Maribella laughed softly and sat beside the colorful chest. "You see," she said, "some things in my world may change from time to time. I may color my hair, wear a different dress, or look a little different when the magic is strong. My caravan may change too. Sometimes it is big and bright, sometimes it is small enough to carry like a bag, and sometimes the inside looks completely different from the outside." Mingoose Mouse looked amazed. "But it is still your caravan?" "Always," said Maribella, "just as I am always Maribella. The outside can change, but the heart stays the same." She touched the blue ribbon on the chest handle. "My magic is always made with love and good intention, and in my world we spell it magic and magical because true magic does not always follow ordinary rules." Semolina nodded seriously. "Like biscuits." Puff Chicken sighed. "Not everything is about biscuits." Semolina took another calm bite and smiled. "No, but the best things usually are." Everyone laughed, and Maribella's caravan bells chimed gently in the forest breeze. Semolina Pilchard sat very still on the forest ground, holding his biscuit carefully in both fins. Everyone stared at him in hopeful silence. 1 second passed, then 2, then 3. "Well," said Mr. Hugh Lindwood, raising one eyebrow, "that may be a new record." Semolina smiled proudly and took a tiny calm bite. Maribella laughed softly and sat beside the colorful chest. "You see," she said, "some things in my world may change from time to time. I may color my hair, wear a different dress, or look a little different when the magic is strong. My caravan may change too. Sometimes it is big and bright, sometimes it is small enough to carry like a bag, and sometimes the inside looks completely different from the outside." Mingoose Mouse looked amazed. "But it is still your caravan?" "Always," said Maribella, "just as I am always Maribella. The outside can change, but the heart stays the same." She touched the blue ribbon on the chest handle. "My magic is always made with love and good intention, and in my world we spell it magic and magical because true magic does not always follow ordinary rules." Semolina nodded seriously. "Like biscuits." Puff Chicken sighed. "Not everything is about biscuits." Semolina took another calm bite and smiled. "No, but the best things usually are." Everyone laughed, and Maribella's caravan bells chimed gently in the forest breeze.